everyone. Welcome to Kryptonized. We have a returning guest. I think this is your third time, isn't it, Doctor?
Yep.
We're going to talk about AI and my favorite subject, tokenization, and how they're going to come together in the future. I have a vision that I'm starting to paint, which involves, it's not just about the tokenization of real world assets or commodities, but it's how it can also interact with other systems like the IRS, for example, or interpreting contracts and things being done digitally automatically instead of having to get 15 people to approve or take an action. So that's where I think it's headed. Hopefully not with government oversight, because there's all sorts of dangers to that we could briefly touch on. It's not the purpose of this show. But you wrote a very interesting article in NASDAQ, and I piqued my interest because it was AI and tokenization, those being my two favorite subjects now. And I think, in terms of the business world, those are the two most popular things happening right now. So first of all, introduce yourself briefly, then jump into, why you wrote this article and what's it about.
My background is a little bit non-conventional, non-traditional. I started in STEM. This is where I also started in technology, which is all about, the AI and everything else. So this is why I'm very, very intrigued about that. So as a teenager, I went to a STEM school, everything to relate to sciences and technologies. Then I went to college, got introduced to everything economics and finance, and then came to New York to get my PhD at Stern Business School NYU in finance, and worked for a while as a quant, which made sense, which is basically data science for finance. So that was where it all started, and one thing led to another. I stumbled on crypto and back to my roots, which is blockchain technology and everything. And when you think about it, while you're doing quant, you basically are in the space of AI. That's what it's all about. It's algorithm, which are just getting more and more sophisticated. So now the way that I like to describe myself is more like an emerging technologies expert, because the integrations of all technologies, and I'm always thinking about how to integrate all of these technologies together. Because if you think about it, if you for any business solution, not just in tokenizations and investing and finance, but anything, it's going to be a combination or integrations of several technologies. And this is also the book that I'm now in the process of writing, which is, emerging technologies and responsible innovation.
All right. So now we understand what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're thinking very big picture, and then how these things are all going to work to create a different future. Why did you write the article, AI meets tokenization?
Because, now I think, people are, either talking only about AI, only about blockchain tokenization, as if they don't relate and they have nothing to do with each other. And they can't really, I call it that they can supercharge each other to really bring like a very intense, effective solution. And even though it has been implemented, the idea of AI and other technologies together, when you think about NASA, but I'm not talking about NASA right now, but other spaces, they've been thinking about it. But I'm thinking, okay, there's all these great technologies, and we know what AI can do separately. We talked about the algorithm, and we talked about robo-advisors, and we talked about the chatbots, and all kinds of other things. Well, great. I mean, we know that they're doing all kinds of optimizations for investing and risk management, et cetera, et cetera. Great. That's AI. And then we have a tokenization of saying, okay, we're going to take any assets, whether it's real assets or intangible or tangible, and we're going to tokenize it. So that's as if, walk on its own, and AI works on its own, and they have nothing to do with each other. But what if we combine them together? Just think about how that's going to look like. That's a supercharge, because now, because AI can help even in the writing of the smart contract themselves, because everyone is thinking about one of the when I'm talking to people that are not really into blockchain, and you talk with them about smart contract, and they hear about codes, and they say, like, oh God, there's a code behind it, as if, I understand stocks, I understand how that works, but this is like too much. And they fear, how code and everything. But every day we use code. I mean, every software that you use basically on your phone has a code, and people.
But there's a human that programmed it. It's not
Exactly.
some AI that's kind of taking control. So that I think that's what people are worried about.
It's not that AI is going to program, even though there are some applications that can do that. I'm not going to go down that road, but I'm talking about how can that and how AI can enhance the process. Because if you use it, for example, natural language, and to write the code, then it will be much more useful for developers because it will help them detect all kinds of errors in the code itself, or even some over like loopholes, not necessarily bugs, but even errors and loopholes that can happen. Because if you talk like in natural language and then you start coding, it's easier to find the code, because code is very I mean, I don't know if you ever coded, but it's kind of complex,
No.
and it can get very complex if you have a very complex smart contract and you want to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that can help. It can minimize the errors and the bugs and all the other problems and basically save money and self heartache. That it's in process itself of writing a smart contract, it can be very efficient. Not only that, because AI is all about collecting data. Think about, it can make the smart contract itself even more effective, and executed, expedite the speed of the execution, and even reduce gas fees. Because if you think about it, because the gas fees depends on how many operations you do in the smart contract. But what if the AI can optimize it in a way that you spend less? So isn't that beautiful? I mean, there are so many ways to think about, how I'm not saying that AI is going to write the code, but it can help the smart contracts to be more efficient in many, many, many ways.
Yeah, I mean, for me, AI and tokenization means that it's going to help the smart contracts and be an agent that interacts with other things that could potentially interact with the smart contracts and the token themselves. So, an example I like to give is, what if you had a real estate token that was tied to a project that automatically collected rents, automatically made distributions to investors, and the developer themselves, the owner themselves, reported to the IRS, which most people aren't going to like, and also paid the electric bill, and did everything involved that you can digitize with the building, and it does it automatically. All the maintenance schedules are part of that. The AI recognizes when things are going wrong or when something should be worked on. So it's that's how I see things happening, and that's just real estate. You can imagine across any particular contract, and then how it interacts. And you're a bigger picture thinker than even I. How it interacts with things that aren't maybe not even related to the building, but it's related to somebody that lives in the building. I'm making this up. Maybe they've turned into a credit risk,
Right.
and we should help them move out of the building. Again, now I'm just throwing
Yeah.
stuff out there, but it's once everything's digitized, once everything's talking, once you have an AI agent that's constantly looking, the sky's the limit. I don't think we can imagine what's going to happen in the future once this is implemented.
Exactly. This is why I said, that they once you kind of combine them together, you supercharge to like limitless opportunities and implementations. And I can generalize even the asset, the real estate that you mentioned. If you think about it, we always think about tokenization, and even with the stock market, there are valuations, and it's very hard, everyone, you have all these analysts who are saying, oh, it has supposed to be this value and that value, and you don't know where exactly they're collecting the data from. But with tokenization, and in fact, you can apply it, to anything. But tokenization is even more beautiful, because tokenization itself is a code. It's an algorithm, and AI is a code and algorithm, and that why I like to put code to code, code mid code, and then it supercharge it and become, a more effective code, which means that we always think about valuation. Valuation is always very critical. I want to make sure that I'm, using the right price, that I'm buying the right price and I'm selling the right price. And think about, that AI, like what in your example, getting all this information about the real estate, but it can be about any company, whether it's an energy company, whether it's an automobile company. It can gather all information even outside of the company itself that relates to it. If it's an automobile company, it takes into account, all kinds of issues that relate to constructions in roads and transportation and the accountability of a driver or autonomous vehicles that would you think about and insurance and God knows all this information can be accumulated and you can get in real time the right valuation for the asset. Just think about it. We don't have that today. People, come up with all kinds of ideas, but it's code meets code, so the code can bring the information immediately to the tokenization and immediately know what the value is. Not only that, think about another supercharge here that's going to be in the hand of the user or the investors. So now let's say AI collect all this data and give me all this information real time about what the value should be and what changes can happen. And then I'm as an investor, also tapping into this code or whatever application and saying it, if it falls beyond that threshold, then sell it or buy it or halt the transaction or do this or do that. And if you detect this kind of trend, then do this, or instead of buy this and buy some other things, or buy options or buy puts, or buy some other company to add to my portfolio. It's in the hands of everyone now. Everyone is going to be supercharged. Sorry for that, I'm using this word so much, but that's
No,
what.
it's but it makes sense. It's like AI. It's like copywriters using AI today. They're supercharged because they can write out a brief article and then you can bring in a Chat GPT or a Claude 2 to come in and supercharge that. Or you could just have it write a bunch of articles, which I don't find they're very good or detailed or have personality. But you could, if you wanted to, do that. And I'm sure smart contracts and I'm sure some of the things that you're talking about are going to come out with those. And then if you're worried that the AI is going to do something nefarious, you can have another AI bot looking at it to
Right,
make sure, hey, if
exactly.
these things are checked, if it sends more than $1,000 somewhere, you have a human intervene and approve it. I mean, so you can have the AI watching the AI.
And I have another option to that, which I mentioned also in the article, is another issue is that, let's say you see like a suspicious, activity, then you can inject, another smart contract that will halt the transaction or put so now we're monitoring the AI through the an AI or some suspicious the AI is saying something, and then the smart contract itself is there's another smart contract that is going to be in being injected into the process. So as you can see, it's like it's a smart contract within a smart contract, an AI within an AI. I know it sounds very complex, but people don't have to think about it. I mean, they want to understand the details, but you don't need to understand the details. All what you need to do is what it's doing. It's like when you're using ChatGPT, did you ever ask yourself how natural language work? Did you ever ask yourself how the algorithm works, or you just used it and enjoyed it? I mean, why do you need to understand how the smart contract works? Just make sure that it's working okay and it's
You're right.
benefiting you. And that's why I'm so excited about that, because if you really start integrating all these technologies in all kinds of ways, which I just mentioned, and I can talk even for hours about that. That could be endless. I mean, and you can see, for example, JP Morgan, we know that they put a trademark, we talked about last time, I think, on Index GPT, right? And that's supposed to be something that, like, provide information like a GPT, give you advice, about all kinds of um, assets, or the traditional. But we know that they're already venturing into tokenization. We already know that they're doing repo. What if they add that to the repo that they have on blockchain? Because they do use.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, there's something that we call a atomic settlement, which we use for repo, which is great, right? Instantaneously, it doesn't matter how many legs you have to the contract, it's this seller and that buyer and this collateral and that collateral, it will be in sense. And everyone's saying, oh, it's instantaneous, oh God, something wrong is going to happen. But what if you have an AI that mitigates all these risks, that makes sure that monitors that all of these legs are going to be optimized in the right at the right time, at the right instance, and everything else. And then you can be, a little bit more confident that this atomic settlement that the smart contract can do is really going to be efficient.
All right. Well, I know we could go on and on forever on this because it's so interesting. So we're going to put the link to her article on NASDAQ in the show notes. Where can people reach out and find you?
You can go to Dr. spelled out DOCTOR blockchain.io and find everything about me there, including my articles.
All right. With that, thank you so much. Thanks for being on the show. And we're going to have you back again, maybe for the next article, which is AI and blockchain.
Right.
Hey folks, my name is Mark Fidelman. I am the host of Kryptonized, and I have a special tip for you today. It's Tetraguard. You can find it at tetraguard.io. This is the first decentralized ETF consists of Bitcoin, PaxG, and Ethereum. I recommend this. If you just want to get into crypto the easy way and have some solid crypto tokens that are in this particular ETF, then Tetraguard is the way to go. Check it out.